What's up, Navigating Academia family? I hope you guys are having a wonderful week so far. I wanted to make you this little video to be able to respond to a very valued viewer's comment. Say that 10 times fast. So what my goal is for today is to be able to respond to a question, which is the same kind of question that you are more than welcome to send me simply by commenting below in the comment section. If you have a question that's general enough so that it's something that you think that all the Navigating Academia community, all several thousand of us who are watching this video could benefit from, feel free to put it below. If you want to work one-on-one with me, whether it's something where you're an early career professional wanting to get more publications, I work with a lot of undergraduates who are interested in getting into grad school, particularly in clinical psychology or related behavioral health fields, and I also work with folks who are trying to get a postdoc as they're finishing up their doctorate. So if you're interested in any of those services, please do feel free to set up a session with me. I no longer offer free consultation sessions, but as my way of giving back to you for free, I make these viewer response videos because I appreciate you guys. It's really important for me to do this as professional service. You know, I didn't really have many people in my life who are willing to spend time with me, giving me academic career guidance. And so I love doing this for you guys. So thank you for watching because you're the reason that I do this. So here's the question for today. Basically what we're going to be talking about in a nutshell is it realistic to want to be both a clinical psychologist and a researcher? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read the question here, kind of that was sent to me in the comments section, and then I'll give you my take on it. So here we go. It seems as though if I think I might possibly want to see any clients at all down the road someday, then a clinical psychology program would be the best foundation. Is that a fair assessment? For example, I'm always studying, learning, and growing on my own research interest. I love teaching group yoga classes and leading anatomy lectures, more academic, and there is something special about seeing progress and breakthroughs with my private client business, in other words, practitioner. I don't see myself sitting full-time with patients all day. The desire for variety leads me to believe a PhD as a clinical psychologist or scientist practitioner would be best. I suppose I'm wondering if the flexibility I'm imagining is possible. This is an awesome question, and thank you so much to the person who asked it, because this is something that everyone, and I guarantee you also myself, when I started grad school I was 21, and I remember at that age I thought to myself I wanted to be a full-time clinician, and I did want to sit all day with clients. That's what I wanted to do, specifically working with kids. That's what my passion was. I had done some research at that stage, but just to be straight up with you, I didn't like it. I did not like anything having to do with study design or ethics boards or writing up things for publications, which is like extremely ironic because what I do now virtually full time is training and consultation. I published over 90 papers. I'm working on my 5th academic book right now. And I'm developing this system essentially to be able to train people how to publish in high impact journals. And that's going to be coming out in a few months here. So if you're watching this beyond 2020, it's already out. So make sure to check it out. And I'll make sure to make a bunch of videos for you guys on it. It's the greatest thing that I've ever built. It's really important to me. So in any case, that's super ironic though, right? Everybody that I have found who is a clinician has at some stage struggled with this question. And everybody who's a clinical researcher as well. It is true that when it comes to especially the North American model of I'm from the US model for sure, when it comes to clinical psychology PhDs, is the use of this thing called the scholar practitioner model. That's your magic phrase, okay, for your personal statements of purpose, etc. is you want to be a scholar practitioner. This is the idea. Now, the viewer who asked the question, they mentioned this, they say scientist, practitioner, clinical scientist. There are a lot of synonyms for it. I say scholar practitioner, you know, I wouldn't beat you down if I'm reading your application and I end up seeing that you refer to it as one of those terms. It's completely fine. The idea is the same, which is essentially that you want to do clinical work to inform your research, and then you want to do research to, in turn, in a reciprocally deterministic manner, impact your clinical practice to impact your research, and research to impact your clinical practice. And it is true, the more research that you do, if you actually want to get published, you need to be so up to date on the research literature in your field. And what the literature suggests is that the more up to date on the literature you are, the more valid your assessments are, and more accurate if you're making a prediction. Also, the more reliable that it is, both in terms of interclinician, so inter-rater reliability, as well as different types of construct reliability. So, at the end of the day, people think to themselves, I'm going to get the most bang for my buck in terms of flexibility if I do a clinical doctorate. I will tell you that in my experience, that is true if you end up getting a doctorate in, let's say, social psychology, cognitive psychology, etc., where there's no clinical licensure element. Then it's one of these things at the end of the day, you are not clinically licensed to be a practitioner. And because of that, you can't sit down with somebody and actually give therapy without getting essentially another degree or a different kinds of licensure. Now, there are certain things that, like in the US, if you want to be like a life coach, which is something that's neither here nor there, that's like an unregulated field. If you're ever interested in getting into that, for the love of God, please do not get a certification in life coaching. Why do I say that? Because there's no official regulatory body. If it's something where you have clinical experience in your past, like I got a doctorate in clinical psychology, right? But it's something where in the US, I'm not licensed to practice, right? I was never licensed to practice in the United States because most of my life I have not been living in the United States, and neither of my degrees are from the United States. So it makes sense that I don't have that licensure, and I do not want to do a conversion program to make my clinical degree from Europe be a clinical degree here in the United States. I'm not interested in that. So I do a lot of kind of coaching and consultation and these sorts of things. But if somebody has a diagnosable major mental illness, I am not going to treat them because that is not my role and it is not a part of my profession here in the United States. And so because of that, I would make sure to outsource that to somebody who is a licensed clinician. And no, you should not say that you are a life coach and then go out there and be doing things that somebody who is a licensed clinician should be doing. So anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but it's really important for me to mention because I do see people doing that and it is very unethical and you can get in a lot of trouble for that. So please don't do that. In any case, back to the matter at hand. When it comes to this idea that you want to do a little bit of research and a little bit of clinical practice, two things I'm going to say here. Point number one is the big question that you always need to ask yourself when it comes to making that determination of whether you want to spend most of your time doing clinical work or most of your time doing research is basically how close do I, this is me talking as if I was you, how close do I need to how close do I need to be to change in other people to feel personally fulfilled myself? Having done research for over a decade now, almost 15 years, which is wild, what happens is that when you are sitting behind a desk and looking at data, for example, most of my work is in forensic mental health, forensic psychology, forensic psychiatry, you name it. And I've done a lot of work taking a look at predictions of the likelihood that individuals are going to be violent in the future and predictions that sexual offenders, when released from custody, what's the likelihood that they will essentially recidivate, in other words, reoffend. The issue that you've got there is that when you end up taking a look at recidivism data, which is reoffense data, when you look at it, basically it's all zeros and ones. 0 means the person didn't reoffend and 1 means that they did. Now, if they did, this means an act usually of something like child molestation or an act like rape, just these wild, horrible things. But it's one of these things where when you're just dealing with the data over and over and over again, you stop seeing it as actually acts that have impacted families and destroyed communities and these things, and instead you see them as zeros and ones. You end up seeing them as digits. And I remember when that happened to me, when I started seeing that, and I made the determination for myself that I needed to shift my focus because I was getting disaffected, I just didn't feel anything anymore when I was looking at the data. I didn't like that. And I was doing a lot of work in terms of research on the efficacy of different clinical interventions and these sorts of things. And even though I was really passionate about that, I didn't actually get to see the changes happening. And I ended up feeling pretty unfulfilled because I wasn't working with people. And so for me, what ended up happening was that I found myself being a lot more fulfilled working one-on-one with people. I remember I used to be a behavioral coach up at the Obsessive Compulsive Disorder Institute in McLean Hospital in Belmont, Massachusetts. And it's famous it's a famous psych hospital that's up there. And I can tell you that this was a really big experience for me because literally just working every day, Monday through Friday, going in, it was one of these things where you got to see the change happen in front of your eyes and, applying evidence-based best practices and, working with very talented excuse me, talented clinicians, you saw the change happening in front of you, and there was something really magical about that. Now, everybody goes into grad school thinking to themselves, I'm going to do a little bit of X and a little bit of Y, a little bit of research, a little bit of clinical practice. And exactly how much you want to do really depends on you. But what ends up happening is that you really will be, you just need to know, and you guys know I'm always very transparent and honest with you, I have never seen someone who has been able to 50-50 straddle both of those and to have a thriving clinical practice and have a thriving publication career. There's certain people who do it a little bit better than others, as is for anything in life, but I've never seen anybody like dominate at both and then also have any, to be honest with you, like just any life whatsoever, to have a spouse, to have children. And if you have a spouse and children, you're not going to be spending any time with them because you're going to be running your business, your clinical practice. Running a business is no joke. To be able to get the practice up and running, and you have to keep in mind that you're paying all the costs. And so you got to get good at sales and marketing. You got to understand the insurance landscape and the regulations of your jurisdiction. There's so many things to take into consideration to grow your practice. And it costs a lot of money to grow your practice and quite a bit of time until you start making, let's say 6 figures, for example. That's going to take you time. And there's so much hustle and so much grind that goes into that. If you really think that you're going to have like all this time to be, submitting institutional review boards, so IRB applications and doing this stuff, you're out of your mind. It is something where I've certainly seen people do things like, have a faculty position or a tenure track faculty position even, and have a couple of clients, clinical clients on the side to still stay engaged in that. And I've definitely seen people who are clinicians who really want to get involved with publishing, essentially publish like one paper, a year every 2 years, or write things like newsletter articles. So they're not peer-reviewed publications in terms of things that'll help your H-index and these things. There's no like impact factor newsletters, right? That's not a thing. But it's something where you can still be writing and disseminating and, being a thought leader in your field and this kind of stuff. I think a lot of people, everybody wants to do it all, and I respect that, and I really understand it. And I know because that was me too, As the years have gone on, what I've realized is that what I'm really good at is educating. I'm a really good public speaker, and I'm really good when it comes to reading an absurd amount of content and then being able to suck the marrow out of it and get just the core content to be able to present it in a fun way, in a way in front of like thousands of people. I don't have stage fright for God knows what reason. I should, maybe it's a psychopathic thing, a lack of fear, right? Or hopefully not lack of empathy, that's for sure. And it's one of these things where that's what I'm really good at. And I enjoy it, and I can make money off of it. And so those are the things that you need to figure out for yourself. What actually brings you, not happiness, because that's fleeting, what brings you sustainable joy? How close do you need to be to the change in other people? Because you can impact way more lives as a researcher than you can as a clinician, but you're not going to see it. I can tell you right now, the likelihood that anybody on the street's going to come up to you and be like, oh, hey, that workbook you published, my therapist used it and it really helped me. It's not going to happen. I mean, the likelihood is like almost zero. So you need to kind of be able to be satisfied knowing that it's out there, that people are using the resources you're building, are reading the research that you're publishing, so on and so forth. So in terms of the idea of flexibility, I do agree with you that getting a clinical doctorate would be best. Because people know that, though, obviously it is so hard to get into these programs. It's more difficult in the US to get into a clinical psych PhD program than it is to be able to get into a medical school program. And I just read a study the other day which ended up finding that the likelihood that someone in a clinical degree, when I say straight up clinical degree, not scholar practitioner, so like PsyD programs, the likelihood that a PsyD graduate will publish a paper based on their doctoral dissertation relative to somebody in a clinical psych PhD program is about a 400% difference. So people in the clinical psych PhD program, they are arguably better prepared as academic writers because there's much more of a focus on research and on writing, and usually your mentors, they have an expectation you're going to be publishing. If somebody has an expectation for you, the likelihood is that you're going to live up to it. This is why all of my employees and the people that I work with, the people that I mentor, I set very clear expectations and that I'm very supportive of them. Every single, and maybe if you guys want, tell me in the comments below if you want a video on something like, because I've run several companies that, thank God, literally, right, have been very successful. If you want my tips and tricks in terms of being an effective leader and being an effective manager, I'm more than happy to make a video for you on that. But it's certainly something at the end of the day where everybody is different. The things that drive us are different, and we end up seeing media representations of psychologists, and we kind of assume that that's what real life is, and it's really not. And it's okay if you maybe take a clinical position, maybe you do a summer internship or something, and you don't like it. It's okay to not be a clinic. I'm just telling you right now, you may have planned your whole life on doing that. If it's something that does not bring you a sense of sustainable joy, if you bring that work home and you start feeling burnt out after 6 months, that's not a great sign. My goal for you on this channel is to find you a career path that makes you happy and is something where you can also have if you desire it, you can also have a family. So that's what I've got for you today. Again, bless you. I appreciate you watching as always. Please do like this video. Comment anything below, especially if you like the video, because it helps us with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to share it with like any videos on this channel that you've enjoyed. Please, please, please. It doesn't cost anything. Post it on your social media. This is not a channel that I make any money from, so really I'm doing this to try to help people. So if you can help me on that mission of trying to help people, I would so appreciate it. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.